Welcome to the Daphne Child Grantee Spotlight Series, where we showcase the innovative work of our grantees in combating violence against children. The Daphne Child Programme is a collaborative initiative funded by the European Union, led by Eurochild and Terre des Hommes, empowering grassroots civil society organizations across 9 European countries through a comprehensive 3-year sub-granting and capacity building program. You can learn more at daphne.childhub.org. That's daphne.childhub.org. Hi, I'm Zsofia Karetka, and today I'm speaking with Beatrice Darie from the Bethany Social Services Foundation in Romania about their project Educate Gently. Beatrice, could we start by you introducing yourself and the work that you are doing with Bethany, please?
Hi, Sophia. Thank you so much first for inviting us to this podcast, especially this is part of Child Hub, this incredible and inspiring community of best practice in child protection. I'm Beatrice Darie. I work as a program director at the Bethany Social Services Foundation. My background is social worker. I work for more than 20 years, I think almost 25 years in community development and child protection. And I joined the Bethany Social Services Foundation in 2009. In this role, first I worked as a community development manager, and then I took this job of program director. So I coordinate the interventions for children. Yeah, so whole department of programs is under my coordination. As a mission, Bethany Social Services Foundation is dedicated to work with the most vulnerable children. And when we are talking about vulnerability, we think about, yes, children from rural areas, from remote villages. We are talking about children with disabilities that also need a lot of services for therapy and for social inclusion. One area that we are working with for many years are rural communities. Maybe you know that Romania is mostly rural. I mean, more than half of Romania population is part of rural areas. And we see that after many years of investment, even from the European community, Romania is still suffering when we are talking about the life in rural areas. It's because, there are discrepancies, big discrepancies between rural and urban, and the biggest number of poor children in Romania are living in rural areas. These parts are usually the poorest. Yeah, and that is why our programs focused on those children, especially when we are talking about education and child protection. We still need to invest a lot in educating children and also in the system that protects children in these rural areas. This is also one of the reasons that we started this project in these communities. In fact, it's our strategy, our approach is to focus on one community and bring different intervention in that community that increase the life of the children. So the communities that are part of Educate Gently are also part of other intervention of our organization. I mean, we work on education mostly for more than, let's say, 3 or 5 years. So we noticed a lot of the needs, and that is why we also added this intervention in the community. And if I'm thinking about the intervention of Educate Gently, I'm thinking about the need of protecting better the children in these communities. Again, I say, unfortunately, when we talk about social services in Romania, especially in those areas, these are very poor. We still have communities where we don't have social workers. I mean, people that have competences to work with the children. It is pretty much emphasized on the benefits for the vulnerable families instead of bringing services in the communities, and that is why a lot of children are remaining out of the child protection safety network. And this is where arrives the violence against children, negligence, and carelessness of the children. And yeah, we know that where in the communities there is poverty, there are also a lot of other issues derived from poverty, because a poor family suffers of different phenomena. I mean, different phenomena are happening in families that are poor. And here we talk about violence against children. We talk about alcohol consumptions, which are very much affecting children.
Yes. So you mentioned that you were already present in these villages with the other projects, and working on these other interventions, you realized the need for a program like Educate Gently. Yeah. And I would be really curious about the evolution of that. So what sort of projects those were, and what concrete cases made you realize that something like this would be necessary?
Okay. Yes, particularly this community we are working for instance, they still have issues in school infrastructure. We still have small villages where the schools are very old and children do not have opportunities for participating to different activities or even to benefit from the minimum standards of education, because infrastructure is very much related with standards in education. Yeah, for instance, they are still heating their classes with stoves and things like that. So we wanted to make sure that children have comfortable space where they can learn, they can be educated. So we started with small investment in the infrastructure. Then we realized that those children also need better educational services. So we developed school after school program where we pay the teacher to stay with the children after the hours, and also bringing other kinds of intervention that could prepare teachers were one side and children on one side, and also parents, because we also work a lot with parents. So we created these spaces for them to learn better, to have a better performance, to have success in school. And around this school after school program, we create other different opportunities for the children. Like, for instance, is this project, Educate Gently. Let's now talk about indeed Educate Gently. And what I find interesting in this project, that it really focuses heavily on educating the parents rather than just working directly with the children, although it does that too as well. And we're going to talk about that. But why did you decide that parents are the key to preventing violence in these communities? And what did you find missing in terms of parents understanding about raising children without violence? We are focusing on parents because, yeah, it's somehow obvious that they are the first family. It's the first safety environment the child needs to receive protection and care. And yeah, we noticed working directly with children, but also working with teachers and other community members, that they are also raise this issue that families need to involve more, even when we talk about child protection or education. Because if we have a child that has low school performance, it's not only a school contribution, but it's also family contribution. So many observations went us to this direction, to work more with parents, even though there are also a lot of challenges. And I'm sorry to say it again, but it's also related with the poverty, because when families are poor, they are having a lot of frustration, a lot of tensions within the families. Their first priority is to offer basic needs like food and clothes and so on. And many times they neglect the children's need, the real child need, which is, of course, to be listened, to be protected, to be educated, and so on. Parents must remain our priority, as well as children, of course, to prepare the new generation, but they have not to be forgotten from any intervention. That is why in all our programs, even though we work with children, we also want to bring parents in the equation and, share the responsibilities in such a way they also learn how to involve.
Yes, 100%. And I'm sure that this is an enormous challenge indeed. But I'm curious if you can share some of the things that you find that do work for involving parents in a meaningful way.
We are doing this in many ways. For instance, let's say when we work in social services, because we also as an organization, we are licensed to provide social services to children. It is not the case of this project, but we work in daycare centers and we are working more closely with parents because children are coming on a daily basis and our relation is stronger with the parents. So one way we are doing is to have even a contractual relationship, if I may say that, because the legislation is one of the standards in working in social services is to have this legal contract with the family that receive social services, and part of our contractual relation, let's say, is to come to the meetings, to participate to different activities that we are organizing. We are trying to bring people that they feel trustful to talk and to share their problems, like social workers and teachers, and not trying to come with, I don't know, complex things, just providing them the space to talk about their issues and to share. And this is how we also find out about a lot of very negative things that happened, unfortunately, in the families. And we are trying to debate together how can we make the things go well. We are also, especially on this project, we are trying to emphasize child rights and child needs. For instance, it's not okay if you hear your neighbor that behave bad with their child. It's not okay to stay quiet. You need to report this. Or if you feel like you have a neighbor that feel depressed and I don't know, has different behaviors that you feel that are not okay, you have to say it. You can tell it to the teacher, to the priest, to the social worker, or to any community leader that you think can help the family. And this is, in fact, these are the main messages that we are doing even now in this project. So one side, we talk about how do we raise our children, what are their needs, their rights, and on the other side, how can we be protective factors, protective people, even if we are just neighbors or just simple people from the community. We might say that is a project that is addressed to community, that strengthens the community systems and networks so they can protect better their children. And I like very much this idea because on long term, we as a foundation want to also move to make this step from working individually with children to a systemic change where we work more with communities and child protection system. We as professionals used to say that Romania didn't finish its reform on child protection because a lot of autonomy was left in the local communities, at the roots, at the basic, but with no resources, with the lack of know-how. I mean, communities have been left to manage by themselves. Resources are very scarce. That is why it's somehow the progress, it's very small, or in some communities there is no progress, because if you don't bring resources, you cannot expect to have a quality of life for children in those communities. And we are also working directly with communities, and we are also part of some federation and trying to do advocacy. But I think this is the most challenging change, to direct resources to those communities that have been somehow left by themselves. I mean, if you can imagine, the mayor, the local authority took the local council and so on, took the whole decisions, but they are not prepared to work and to find the best approaches, especially in child protection and social services.
Yeah, thank you for giving this very insightful context into the situation. Coming back to Educate Gently, and now we understand why you are focusing on the parents and community members. And this is actually something I've been hearing from all the other projects, that strengthening the community itself seems to be the right approach to these questions. But where it gets also very interesting, your approach is that you're working with children in creating education materials for the parents, for the teachers, for the community members, and you're having children lead this process. So I'd like you to walk us through this process, how it works, how you approach this.
It's something that we really like as a team to learn about, and we really think it's a process, a continuous process to learn about child participation and voice, because it's not like a receipt that you apply in any community that you are going, but it's also about learning. And yeah, this is the community where we're working for more than 3 years. We noticed that when trying to dialogue with children in the presence of their teachers and people they knew from the community, we realized that in fact we noticed children that were not expressing freely. I mean, they had this fear that someone is judging them. Also, we were inspired by the motto that I also introduced in the concept note, that we need to normalize child participation, because child participation in our vision, it's not an objective. It's not, let's say, a project about solely child participation, but it's something that needs to be embedded in all the processes from the community, even its education or child protection or other things. So we wanted to start with this idea for the community to understand that child participation, it's not something we establish as an objective, then we say checked, we did child participation, but it's something that needs to be part of the process. And for this, I was thinking a bit how we did that in this community. In fact, it's interesting that our goal, as we expressed in the project, was to create messages together with the children. So we selected the children, we had the first meeting, trying to know them, and then we started to do our jobs for the next meetings. And we had 3 principles. And first was that children need safe spaces to become confident about what are they speaking. So because the subject, the topic about child violence and bullying and so on, it's really sensitive. We established this principle as a guiding principle of children to feel safe in the space. The second one was that we need to take care as facilitators to be authentic and to prepare ourselves very well when going to the children and develop the sessions. So this was somehow the second principle, that children need authentic adults so they can feel safe to speak up. And the second one was the topic and the appropriate means to make them express their feelings. So with these principles in mind, we started to organize the content and to think, okay, what we're doing in the first step, how do we choose the space, how do we behave as facilitators? We had 2 facilitators, 1 social worker and 1 psychologist. And how do we choose the subjects and the means of working with children in such a way they feel safe to speak. And in fact, we got a lot of lessons learned from interacting with children. We are now almost at the end of the meetings. We propose to have 12 meetings, and the next week the last meeting will take place. In fact, ensuring these principles, it was easier to get from the children a lot of ideas. So we did not focus on the objective of creating message, but mostly on children to feel safe to be part of that group. And discussing with our colleagues, they really felt like took a lot of lessons learned from these sessions with children, especially that they were not knowing each other very well. So it was not a same group, same class. It is a group consisted of children coming from different classes, from 12 to 14 years, but from 6 to 8 level. And yeah, it's again, we realized what I was telling you at the beginning, that in fact, child participation is a process. We also, one activity in the project is to work with the teachers and to work on these subjects. I mean, to train teachers and to have different sessions about child violence and so on. But then we realized that also child participation is a very good subject to bring to the teachers in the school, because we cannot ask them to work with the children on sensitive subject like family violence if they don't create a space where children can express. In the last session, in fact, we will gather all the messages that the children created along the sessions. We will also have a big, how could I say it? It's like a big material where children will put all their messages and will draw. We will also post it in the school, and we will also use it in the public campaign, because we will have a campaign that we will organize, and children will go on the streets and will use the materials and so on. So in fact, all the messages that we got from the children will be on that material. And it was a very interesting process. What my colleagues tell me, the two facilitators, is that they learned a lot. And I think that community need to learn that child participation is firstly create spaces where children feel safe. Only when they feel safe, they can talk. And I think this is one of the challenge that we have, not in the Romanian system, probably in most European countries, that we adults need to listen children more, and not having this idea that they are small and they don't know. Yeah, we need to listen to them, but first we need to create the space for them to speak.
So many things I want to pick up on on this one.
Yeah,
So you mentioned, you mentioned three key things, and the first one being authenticity and being really present with the children, and then the safe spaces. But then you mentioned topic and means, and I suppose you meant choosing the appropriate topic to talk around really sensitive issues like violence and abuse. And I wonder if you can elaborate on that. I find it really interesting. So what sort of means and topic did you find appropriate?
They really talked about the values and behaviors. These were the main topics around they elaborated the whole content of the sessions. More sessions were developed around behaviors. So how do we behave with each other, what our expectations are from the others to behave with us, and so on. And from here they elaborated this topic about why some people behave violent, why are they doing this, and they trying to give the answers according with their experience and their observations. And the messages, at least in one meeting that I participated, the messages were very simple. I mean, children, as we know, are simple, but so, how could I say, genuine. Yeah, I can give you an example. One child said, and I think that this will become one of the message. I think it was the smallest one. He said, to be good does not cost anything, but to be bad costs us all so much. I mean, it was so simple, but it was very impactful for us as adults and for the other children. I think that when we are talking about values, we are talking about investing in the children, because they are at the age when they are for their personality, their values, and so on. So even though maybe we won't be successful with the parents, but at least working with children is somehow a guarantee that they will learn how to be better adults. So from this perspective, our sessions were not only about to formulate messages and educate adults and the other children from the community, but also how we become future adults that learn the real values like tolerance, to be good with the others, to take care of the other needs and so on. Maybe they will not be educated parents. Maybe they will also live in poverty. We don't know because this is the context and the situation. But at least they will learn how to become better parents.
We go to the part where you create messages together with the children, but now comes the harder part, I suppose, which you already alluded to, is that you're taking these child-created messages into workshops, back with the parents, back with the teachers, community members, where the harsh discipline still might be seen as normal or even necessary. So how do you plan to navigate those conversations, especially when you're challenging deeply held beliefs about how to raise children?
What we know is, again, more like principles of interacting with children. So first, again, like with the children, we do want them to know that they come in a safe place and that nobody will judge them. This is the first thing, because as children, parents also, because children had this fear of being judged, and this is one of the most predominant fear that they expressed. So that is why it's important also for the parents to create this safety environment when they know that nobody will judge them for, even though, yeah, they, I don't know, did something bad. So creating as a principle this space. We also discussed with the psychologists that probably there are a lot of trauma that these children have even from their childhood. And most of the time, their attitude to their children is based on those trauma and a lot of fury that is beside their appearance. And probably it will be a short session with how can we calm our fury, our angerness when we are interacting with our children. So some techniques they can do that. And ultimately, of course, is about the fact that even though, yeah, we don't have many resources in the community, we still can go to at least a social worker, a teacher, or someone who can support the parent. Yeah, I mean, even though there are not many resources, but for sure, if you ask for help, you will find help somewhere. Messages of the children will be part of these sessions. Of course, not very, this is what children said. Probably, yeah, it will be somehow integrated in a way, in a general way. Of course, not that child or that child, but these needs of the children were validated with the children. I mean, when we are saying that the child needs to be listened, is something that we validate and had success and so on.
I want to ask you about any key advice you would give to other organizations doing similar work, working with children and their parents in communities that are challenged. What are your key insights? And this can be very personal as well.
I would say that such project like the one addressing family violence and child violence, which is a very sensitive project, needs to be integrated in a community. But before, you need to know the community. You need to try to interact with people to understand what is happening in that community. Because even though sometimes we used to go with methodologies and, I don't know, tools and means to work with them, it's really important to customize all those things to the community culture and to the community situation. I mean, for instance, you may go considering that community has professionals that families can refer to and so on, but you realize that they don't have. And your plan must be changed. What are you doing? How are you addressing this challenge in the community? So first, document well the project before implementing it. I would say again that working with children is really valuable. That is why I really like so much the idea of embedding children's voice in all the contexts, even though it's education, it's child protection. It's really valuable, not only helpful, but valuable because children can give you a perspective, a very genuine and honest perspective of the school, of the community, and you can learn a lot. So listen to the children. And one thing that we also learned in this project, even though we planned to have training with a teacher, somehow in the same time with child participation workshops, we realized that it's better to finish these workshops and then to start working with the teachers, because this got us better understanding of the school culture, of the children, of the needs they have. So with all this in mind, we are more confident to discuss with the teacher about violence against children. And maybe the last recommendation, even though I know it's hard to capture everything in a project, at least our intervention, think about all these important stakeholders. Maybe it's not very profound, the intervention, it's not very deep, but in some ways you cannot work on one side and left the other side not covered. I mean, it's like when you are talking about the children, we are talking about an ecosystem around children, and you cannot just solely work with the children without knowing their ecosystem, which is made by teachers, by parents, by community stakeholders, and so on. And yeah, even though I know that it's hard and in any project the resources are limited, I would recommend to take care of the ecosystem around children. In fact, this is somehow our strategy of having this matching intervention, I think, meaning matching intervention in the communities. Maybe one project work with children, the other one works with the teachers, the other one with the parents, and so on. But the intervention to be, how we say, integrated, even though this integrated does not mean too much. You have to be very specific, but I would recommend this if we really want to see some good results in the community.
Thank you. That's actually very good practical advice. And I especially like the one where you say, listen to the children first, get an understanding, and then go to the teachers, that understanding. Beatrice Daria from the Bethany Social Services Foundation in Romania. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Sophia.
To our listeners, thank you for joining us for this episode of the Daphne Child Program's Grantee Spotlight series. You can learn more about this program and all the 48 grantee projects across 9 countries at our website daphne.childhub.org. Until next time, goodbye!